One moment, she was one of Hollywood's brightest young rising stars, inspiring millions with just a smile and a few heartfelt scenes. The next, fans around the world woke up to devastating headlines that almost no one could believe. At only 18 years old, Kaylee Hottle, the talented deaf actress, who stole hearts as Gia in the Godzilla movies, was suddenly gone. Unbead. But what made this tragedy even more emotional wasn't just the shocking loss itself. It was the remarkable response from the person who had every reason to be overwhelmed with grief. Her own father. While fans, actors, and the entertainment industry struggled to process the heartbreaking news, one message of forgiveness would leave millions speechless. Shendi. So what really happened during those early morning hours? And how did a young actress with such a promising future become one of Hollywood's most unforgettable success stories in such a short time? Let's take a closer look. The tragedy unfolded in the early hours of Tuesday morning, in Frederick County, Maryland. According to local authorities, Kaylee Hottle was riding as a passenger in a vehicle traveling through Ijamsville shortly before 10 a.m. When everything suddenly changed, investigators say the vehicle left the roadway before crashing into a culvert. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but despite every effort to save her, Kaylee did not survive. She was just about years old. Aben DS, the driver, a 19-year-old man, was transported to a nearby hospital with injuries that officials described as non-life-threatening. Another passenger reportedly declined medical treatment at the scene. Authorities have stated that the crash remains under investigation, and they believe excessive speed may have been a contributing factor. At this stage, investigators have not released any final conclusions, and additional details may emerge as the investigation continues. As news of the accident spread across social media, disbelief quickly turned into heartbreak. Fans who had watched Kaylee grow from a young newcomer into one of Hollywood's most recognizable deaf performers, struggled to accept that someone with so much life ahead of her could be gone so suddenly. And for many people, Kaylee wasn't simply another actress from a blockbuster franchise. She represented something much bigger. Her performances opened doors for authentic deaf representation on one of the world's largest cinematic stages, the Flesh States, proving that talent speaks louder than words ever could. Within hours, tributes began appearing from every corner of the entertainment industry. Actors, filmmakers, disability advocates, and thousands of fans shared memories, favorite scenes, and heartfelt messages, celebrating the kindness and warmth that Kaylee brought both on and off the screen. Yet among all those emotional reactions, one message stood out above the rest. It wasn't written by a celebrity or a studio executive. It came from someone who knew Kaylee better than anyone else, her father. And what he chose to say, in the middle of unimaginable grief, would soon touch millions of people around the world. But before that emotional message captured everyone's attention, there was another story many fans never knew: the incredible journey that transformed an ordinary deaf teenager into the emotional heart of one of Hollywood's biggest movie franchises. Long before audiences around the world knew her as Gia, Kaylee Hottle was simply a young girl growing up in a close-knit deaf family, where American Sign Language wasn't just a way to communicate, it was part of everyday life. She was a native ASL signer, and her parents, along with several other family members, were also deaf. That upbringing gave her a confidence and authenticity that would later shine on the biggest movie screens in the world. Ironically, before landing the role that would change her life forever, Kaylee wasn't even a huge fan of giant monster movies. In a later interview, she admitted that she hadn't really followed the Godzilla franchise growing up. Instead, it was her father who introduced her to the legendary world of Titans, helping her understand the characters and the larger-than-life universe she was about to join. That small family moment would end up shaping one of Hollywood's most memorable performances. When casting directors searched for someone to play Gia in Godzilla vs. Kong, they weren't simply looking for a child actor. They needed someone who could communicate powerful emotions with very few spoken words. Gia's connection with Kong had to feel genuine, heartfelt, and believable. It wasn't a role that could be faked. Kaylee turned out to be exactly what they had been searching for. Bins. From the moment she appeared on screen, audiences noticed something different. While massive battles between titans dominated the action, many viewers found themselves emotionally invested in the quiet scenes between Gia and Kong. Without long speeches or dramatic dialogue, Kaylee managed to create one of the franchise's strongest emotional connections, and her ability to express fear, hope, trust, and compassion through facial expressions and sign language gave the films a layer of humanity that many fans hadn't expected. In a world filled with towering monsters and explosive battles, Gia reminded audiences that genuine relationships could still be the heart of the story. Almost overnight, Kaylee became one of the franchise's breakout stars. Manda fans flooded social media with praise, calling Gia one of the most memorable characters introduced in years. Many said her relationship with Kong became the emotional anchor that kept the action grounded. Others celebrated the authentic representation of the deaf community on such a massive global platform. For countless deaf children watching around the world, seeing someone like Kaylee in a blockbuster wasn't just exciting, it was deeply personal. She showed that disability was never the defining feature of her character. Instead, it was simply one part of who she was, allowing audiences to connect with Gia because of her courage, frankness, and resilience. Hollywood took notice as well. Instead of being remembered as the deaf actress, Kaylee quickly earned recognition as a genuinely talented performer whose work elevated every scene she appeared in. Directors, producers, and fellow actors began seeing her as a rising star with enormous potential. By the time Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire arrived, fans were thrilled to see Gia return. Her role had grown alongside the expanding monsterverse, and many believed this was only the beginning of an exciting career that could stretch far beyond giant monster films. Everything seemed to be falling into place. New opportunities were beginning to appear, more filmmakers wanted to work with her, and audiences couldn't wait to see what she would do next. But behind the scenes, there was something else that made Kaylee stand out, and according to the people who worked beside her every day, her greatest talent wasn't just what audiences saw on screen. It was the remarkable person she was when the cameras stopped rolling. As impressive as Kaylee Hottle's performances were on screen, the people who worked with her say they only revealed part of the story. Away from the cameras, she had a quiet confidence, an infectious smile, and a work ethic that surprised even some of Hollywood's biggest stars. She may have been one of the youngest cast members in the Godzilla films, but no one treated her like she was inexperienced. In fact, many of her company stars quickly realized they were working alongside someone who had an incredible natural instinct for acting. One of those people was Alexander Skarsgård. Because much of their work together involved American Sign Language, Skarsgård took the time to learn ASL so they could communicate more naturally. In later interviews, he praised Kaylee's professionalism, explaining that she could absorb a director's feedback almost instantly and adjust her performance with remarkable precision. For someone so young, that ability stood out. Film sets are often fast-paced environments where scenes change quickly and actors constantly receive new directions. Even experienced performers sometimes struggle to adapt in the moment. But according to those who worked with Kaylee, she handled those challenges with a calm maturity well beyond her years. Her dedication earned the respect of the entire production team. All crew members admired how focused she remained during long filming days, while fellow actors often spoke about how easy she was to work with. Rather than seeking attention, Kaylee became known for her kindness, patience, and positive attitude. That warmth extended far beyond the movie set. In interviews, Kaylee often redirected praise away from herself and toward the people who supported her. When asked who inspired her most, she didn't name famous actors or Hollywood legends. Instead, she immediately spoke about her parents and her sisters. Mains. She described them as the people she looked up to the most, the ones who encouraged her, believed in her, and helped her stay grounded even as her career continued to grow. Despite becoming recognizable around the world, Kaylee never let fame change who she was. She once admitted that before Godzilla vs. Kong was released, she worried life might never feel normal again. She wondered whether people would constantly recognize her, or whether school would become overwhelming. But after the film's success, she laughed about how those fears never really came true. Yes, classmates sometimes recognized her, but she said it wasn't nearly as dramatic as she had imagined. She continued enjoying the simple moments of being a teenager while balancing an increasingly exciting acting career. That balance was one of the things people admired most about her. She wasn't chasing celebrity status or trying to become the center of attention. She simply loved acting and embraced every opportunity that came her way. As her reputation grew, new opportunities followed. Bias. She appeared in an episode of Magnum PI, expanding her experience beyond blockbuster films. At the same time, Hollywood insiders began viewing her as one of the industry's brightest young deaf performers, a talented actress capable of taking on much more than supporting roles. Many believed the biggest chapters of her career were still ahead. No one imagined that those dreams would be interrupted so suddenly. Then, as heartbreaking news spread across the country, an emotional video appeared online that left millions of viewers struggling to hold back tears. It wasn't a press statement from a studio or a tribute from a celebrity, it came from Kaylee's father, Kino, and in the middle of unimaginable grief, the words he chose would become one of the most powerful moments of this entire tragedy. Because while the world expected anger and heartbreak, what they heard instead was something almost no one saw coming. UAC. As the entertainment world struggled to process the heartbreaking news, countless people expected Kaylee Hottle's family to ask for privacy, and understandably so. Instead, her father chose to share a deeply personal message that would soon spread across social media. Not because of anger, but because of extraordinary compassion. Speaking in American Sign Language from an airport, while traveling to Maryland, Joshua Hottle delivered words that were almost impossible to hear without becoming emotional. He explained that Kaylee's mother and her 4 siblings were together at home, grieving the unimaginable loss. He shared that he was on his way to bring his daughter's body home, Irsak. A journey no parent should ever have to make. Despite the overwhelming heartbreak, he paused to reflect on something else. He said he was grateful for the 18 years they had together, adding that he only wished they had been given more time. It was a simple sentence, but one that resonated with parents and families around the world. Instead of focusing on everything that had been taken away, he chose to remember every moment they had shared. Then came the part of his message that no one expected. Addressing the young man who had been driving the vehicle, Joshua Hottle publicly offered forgiveness. I have forgiven you, he said through ASL. He urged the driver not to allow this tragedy to define the rest of his life, encouraging him to move forward rather than carry unbearable guilt forever. Those words spread rapidly. Thousands of people described the message as one of the most powerful examples of grace they had ever witnessed. Many admitted they couldn't imagine showing such compassion while experiencing such overwhelming pain. His statement didn't erase the tragedy. It didn't lessen the family's grief. Instead, it revealed the kind of values that had shaped Kaylee throughout her life. Kindness, empathy, and the belief that compassion can still exist even during life's darkest moments. Kaylee's mother also shared an emotional message of her own. Mondra's, although devastated by the loss of her daughter, she expressed that she still felt Kaylee's presence with the family. Her words offered comfort not only to relatives and friends but also to thousands of fans who were searching for a way to make sense of the tragedy. Across a social media, those messages became just as memorable as the headlines themselves. People who had never met the Hottle family found themselves deeply moved not only by the loss of a talented young actress, but by the remarkable strength her parents displayed in front of the world. Benjus. Meanwhile, tributes continued pouring in from every corner of Hollywood. Actors who had shared the screen with Kaylee remembered her smile. Directors praised her professionalism. Fans revisited scenes from the Godzilla films, realizing that the young actress who had brought so much warmth to the monster-verse had quietly become an inspiration far beyond the movies themselves. Mianja. But perhaps her greatest legacy wasn't measured by blockbuster success or red carpet appearances. It was measured by the thousands of deaf children who finally saw someone like themselves represented on one of the biggest movie franchises in the world. And as more stories about Kaylee's life began to emerge, it became clear that her impact reached far beyond Hollywood. For an entire she represented something much bigger than a movie star, and that's what made this loss feel so deeply personal. For many moviegoers, Kaylee Hottle was the young actress who shared unforgettable scenes with Kong. But within the deaf community, she represented something much larger than a character on the big screen. She represented possibility. Growing up in a deaf family, Kaylee understood from an early age how meaningful authentic representation could be. For decades, deaf characters in films were often portrayed by hearing actors, and opportunities for deaf performers were limited. Seeing someone like Kaylee appear in one of Hollywood's biggest franchises showed that change was finally happening. The children, who had never imagined themselves starring in blockbuster movies, suddenly had someone they could look up to. Parents shared videos online of their children recognizing Kaylee on screen and signing along with her scenes. Teachers spoke about how students felt encouraged after seeing someone who communicated the same way they did, become part of a worldwide phenomenon. Without saying many spoken words, Kaylee gave thousands of young people something priceless: confidence. She proved that being deaf wasn't something that limited a person's dreams. Instead, it became part of what made her performance so genuine and unforgettable. That authenticity was one of the reasons audiences connected so deeply with Gia. Her relationship with Kong wasn't built through long conversations. It was built through trust, emotion, and sign language, showing millions of viewers that communication goes far beyond spoken words. Even people who had never learned a single ASL sign found themselves emotionally invested in every interaction between the two characters. Hollywood noticed that impact. Rather than treating ASL as a small detail, the films embraced it as an essential part of Gia's identity. For many viewers, it became one of the most memorable examples of authentic disability representation in modern blockbuster cinema. And Kaylee carried that same humility into real life. In interviews, she never portrayed herself as someone extraordinary. She often spoke with gratitude about her family, her teachers, and everyone who had helped her along the way. Even after becoming internationally recognized, she remained remarkably grounded. She once admitted that she worried fame might completely change her everyday life after Godzilla vs. Kong was released. Instead, she was relieved to discover she could still enjoy being a normal teenager, attending school and spending time with friends, while continuing to pursue acting. That down-to-earth personality made people admire her even more. Following news of her passing, officials at the Texas School for the Deaf shared a heartfelt message expressing their sorrow and offering counseling and support services to students and classmates affected by the loss. The school's statement reflected what so many were feeling. Kaylee wasn't simply a successful actress. She was a role model. Across social media, Stories began appearing from fans who said her performances had inspired them to learn American Sign Language. Others said she gave them the confidence to embrace their own identity without fear or embarrassment. For someone who had only appeared in a handful of productions, the influence she left behind was remarkable. Many actors spend decades hoping to create that kind of connection with audiences. Kaylee accomplished it before turning 19 and perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all was knowing that her journey had only just begun. She wasn't slowing down. In many ways, Hollywood believed she was only getting started. OBNDA's details about her upcoming projects emerged. Fans realized just how much the world would never get the chance to see. And the future that once looked so bright had changed forever in a single night. By the time Kaylee Hottle turned Shubat, it was becoming clear that Godzilla was only the beginning of her Hollywood journey. Gurney, MD casting directors had already seen what millions of fans saw: a young actress with natural talent, emotional depth, and the rare ability to connect with audiences without needing long speeches or dramatic monologues. Every appearance she made seemed to leave a lasting impression. And, after introducing herself to the world through the MonsterVerse, Kaylee continued expanding her resume. She appeared in an episode of Magnum P.I., showing that her abilities weren't limited to blockbuster action films. It was another step forward, another opportunity to prove she could succeed in different kinds of roles. Notes, and there was even more on the horizon. Kaylee had been announced as part of the upcoming film What Doesn't Kill Us, Wait P. Kill Us, a project that many believed would showcase another slide of her acting range. Fans were excited to watch her take on new challenges. While industry observers felt her career was entering an exciting new chapter. Sadly, that chapter would never be completed. The news of her passing left many wondering what might have been. Could she have become one of Hollywood's biggest young stars? Would she have continued breaking barriers for deaf performers around the world? No one can answer those questions now. But what makes those questions so heartbreaking is how much momentum she had already built in such a short time. She wasn't simply receiving acting jobs because she represented the deaf community. She earned them because filmmakers trusted her talent. Those who worked with Kaylee consistently described her as prepared, focused, and eager to learn. She listened carefully to directors, embraced feedback, and approached every opportunity with a level of professionalism that impressed people far more experienced than she was. Reputation mattered. Hollywood is filled with talented actors, but directors often say that attitude, kindness, and reliability are just as important as talent itself. By all accounts, Kaylee possessed all of those qualities. Looking back at interviews she gave over the past few years, it's impossible not to notice how excited she was about the future. She spoke with optimism about acting, about continuing to learn, and about balancing her growing career with everyday life. Despite becoming internationally recognized, she never seemed interested in chasing fame for its own sake. She simply loved telling stories. That passion made the loss even harder for those who knew her personally. Friends described someone who remained humble despite her success. Fans remembered someone who always smiled during interviews. And young deaf performers remembered someone who proved that their dreams could reach Hollywood's biggest stages. Sometimes, a career isn't measured by the number of movies someone makes, it's measured by the lives they inspire. By that standard, Kaylee accomplished more in Sir years than many people achieve in a lifetime. Her performances will continue introducing new audiences to Gia for years to come, but they'll also remind viewers of the talented young woman. Behind the character, a performer whose journey ended far too soon. As heartbreaking as her passing has been, the response from Hollywood revealed just how deeply she was respected. Some of the biggest names in entertainment began sharing emotional tributes. each remembering a different side of Kaylee that audiences rarely had the chance to see. Ducks. And those heartfelt messages painted a picture of a young woman whose greatest legacy wasn't just the roles she played but the kindness she left behind in every life she touched. Saplayano, as the heartbreaking news it didn't take long for Hollywood's biggest names to begin sharing their memories of Kaylee Hottle. Their messages weren't just routine celebrity tributes. They reflected genuine admiration for a young actress whose warmth had left a lasting impression on everyone fortunate enough to work with her. It's be free. Munda. Men Descents. One of the first voices to speak out was Millie Bobby Brown, Kaylee's Godzilla company star. Bond posting an emotional message on social media, Millie wrote that she was so devastated by the news and said Kaylee would be deeply missed. Though her tribute was brief, fans could immediately sense how personal the loss felt. The two had shared unforgettable moments on set, and those memories clearly stayed with her long after filming ended. Bond. Soon afterward, tributes began arriving from across the entertainment industry. Manga Oscar-winning actress Marlee Matlin, a trailblazer for deaf performers, expressed her heartbreak over Kaylee's passing. She described the young actress as someone whose beauty and talent would be remembered for years to come. Ermi. Damdia for many people, Marlee's words carried special meaning. Binja, as one of Hollywood's most respected deaf actors, she understood better than almost anyone how significant Kaylee's success had been, not only for herself, but for future generations of deaf performers who now had another role model to look up to. Another emotional tribute came from Troy Kotsur, the Academy Award-winning star of Coda. Blandy. He admitted that learning about Kaylee's passing immediately made him think about his own daughter. His message served as a reminder of how quickly life can change and why every moment with loved ones should be treasured. Banya. His words resonated far beyond Hollywood. Mundius, parents everywhere found themselves reflecting on the same thought. How fragile life can be, and how important it is to appreciate the people we love, while we still can. Memed actress Aliqua Cox, who had worked alongside Kaylee on the upcoming film, What Doesn't Kill Us, shared her heartbreak. Minzia. She offered her condolences to Kaylee's family, describing the loss as almost impossible to put into words. Like many others, she focused less on Kaylee's career and more on the incredible person she had been behind the scenes. Manjus. Even those who had only spent a short time working with Kaylee spoke about her kindness. Band directors remembered her willingness to learn. Crew members recalled her positive attitude during long filming days. Mendy fellow actors described someone who treated everyone with respect, regardless of their role on set. Manja. As these memories continued pouring in, a common theme began to emerge. People weren't simply mourning a talented actress. Bland. They were mourning someone who had made them feel welcome, appreciated, and inspired. Bandy outside Hollywood, fans found their own ways to honor Kaylee's memory. Bandy. Social media quickly filled with artwork, tribute videos, favorite movie scenes, and personal stories from viewers who said Gia had become one of their favorite characters in the MonsterVerse. Beamed. Some revisited her emotional moments with Kong. Others shared clips of her interviews, where her humility and bright personality shined just as strongly as her performances. Within the deaf community, many described her as a symbol of progress. She had shown the world that authentic representation wasn't just important, it could become one of the emotional highlights of a major blockbuster franchise. Her influence reached far beyond entertainment. Teachers spoke about students who now believed bigger dreams were possible. Parents thanked her family for allowing the world to know the remarkable young woman behind the movies. Young, aspiring actors said they finally saw someone who looked and communicated like them. Succeeding on the biggest stage imaginable. Bands for someone whose career had only just begun, the legacy she left behind was extraordinary. 9 years from now, audiences will still watch Gia's quiet moments with Kong. New fans will continue discovering her performances. And many may never realize that behind those unforgettable scenes, not was a young woman who inspired millions simply by being herself. Kaylee Hottle's life lasted only 18 years, but the impact she made will continue for generations. Bendy, as the credits continue to roll on the films she helped make unforgettable, one thing remains certain: her story didn't end with a tragic headline. It lives on through every person she inspired, every barrier she helped break, and every viewer who will never forget the girl who taught even a giant monster the true meaning of trust. Talion. The story of Kaylee Hottle isn't just about the heartbreaking loss of a young actress. It's about a life that proved you don't need decades in Hollywood to leave an unforgettable mark. Tom Zenas. In just a few short years, Kaylee became far more than the actress who played Gia. She became a symbol of hope, authentic representation, and quiet strength. Through her performances, she helped millions of viewers see the world a little differently, the verpilexed, showing that courage, compassion, and connection don't depend on spoken words. Her passing has left an empty space in the hearts of her family, Klarsub 4, Karst, her friends, her company stars, and countless fans around the world. Yet the overwhelming response that followed also revealed something remarkable. The tributes weren't only about her talent, they were about her kindness, humility, and the joy she brought to everyone around her. Perhaps one of the most unforgettable moments in this tragic story came from her father's extraordinary message of forgiveness. In the middle of unimaginable grief, he chose compassion over anger, reminding people everywhere of the power of grace during life's darkest moments. It's a message many won't soon forget. Although Kaylee's journey ended far too soon, her influence will continue every time a young deaf child dreams of becoming an actor, every time someone watches her scenes with Kong for the first time, and every time Hollywood recognizes the importance of authentic representation on screen. Her legacy isn't measured by how many movies she made, it's measured by how many lives she touched. And for someone who was only 18 years old, that's an incredible legacy to leave behind. Jumdas rest in peace, Kaylee Hottle. Kaylee Hottle. Your light may have gone out far too soon, Fulfers, but your story and the inspiration you gave to so many will continue for years to come. If you enjoyed this video and want more thoughtful stories celebrating the lives and legacies of remarkable people, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment sharing your favorite memory of Kaylee's work, and we'll see you in the next video. Alian, you like